everybody? We are back here to talk some sports. The Best Coast Sports Connection, Andy Bishop, Thomas Conroy, Brian Vilvin. My friends, it's really good to see you.
Great to see you too, Andy. Thomas, man, it's been a little while. Nothing's been going on though, nothing going on Earth here, but it's awesome to see you guys. Awesome to talk a little shop here.
Yeah, definitely. Great to see you guys once again and doing our favorite thing, talking sports.
Yeah, looking forward to it. A majority of the main sports leagues across America starting very soon, in particular Major League Baseball, and that gets us excited with our love for our hometown San Diego Padres. Brian, you're rocking the new colors for the Padres. Also love the shirts, guys, rocking the BCSC logos. How have the last couple months been for you? Brian, I feel there's been a bit of a change in your life.
A little bit. I got married on Friday, so a few days ago. It wasn't the wedding we were expecting. We were supposed to have, a big extravaganza with 150 people, and it ended up just being Alyssa and I's parents and siblings. So we had about 10 people. We did it in my parents' backyard. So it was more just like our marriage, because the date, it was our anniversary. We were planning on getting married, like all that stuff. So we still wanted to do it. And we did. It was perfect. It was really intimate and awesome. And now I'm married to my amazing wife. So that was really cool. We're still planning on having a big bash next year whenever all this ends. So that'll be on the horizon. But yeah, a little change in my life there. And the Padres went back to brown. More importantly, the brown is back. I've been dreaming of this hat for years. Oh my gosh. I can't believe this is the hat. Like, I'm just Padres, they make me so happy. And I didn't know if baseball would ever happen. So like the fact that we are on the eve of the Padres season starting, and tonight we've got Nationals, Yankees, and Dodgers, Giants to kick off the MLB season. I didn't know if we'd get to this point.
Hey guys, how do you like the atmosphere without the fans? Are you used to it? Do you like it? I mean, what are your guys' takes on that?
Yeah, for me, I'm okay with it. I think baseball is a little bit of a slower sport, so I don't really mind it there. I have been watching some of the highlights though for some of the NBA games, and those feel like summer league games to me. So I think for basketball, I'm having a little bit more trouble, but I think I'll be all right with baseball.
Yeah, it's interesting. The baseball hasn't bothered me. It hasn't been super noticeable. I did watch a broadcast the other day. I'm not going to say which one it was. It wasn't a Padre broadcast, but one of the scrimmage games, and the way they were pumping in the crowd noise, I really didn't like. So in the Padres Angels games over the last couple of days, I thought it's been done nicely. It's very understated and just kind of like white noise in the background. This other one, I think, they're probably learning as well how to get the levels right and all that. So it was a little bit weird how loud and like a little bit awkward the fake crowd noise was. But for the most part, yeah, the empty stadium, don't really notice. Just feels like everybody's playing in Tampa Bay. So I think it's survivable.
Yeah, I got the feeling watching a couple of inter-squad games that it had a little Tecmo Bowl feel with the piped in noise, but I agree with you, Brian. Let them kind of figure it out as they get going. We're kind of all in a work in progress. It's kind of funny seeing the announcers. They're having a little hard time with these home run calls, because I think a lot of these announcers kind of really kind of make their call based off the fans' response, and it's kind of hard when you see a ball, like it's almost like batting practice. Like, wow, that went pretty far. Oh, wait a minute, it's a home run. But it's all like a work in progress. For me, I think it's going to be a lot better towards when we come towards the end of the 60 games than right now, this first week or so.
Thomas, something you just mentioned, that we all have a background in broadcasting. That's what brought us all together in the first place. But something I hadn't considered was the camera operators on long drives and everything. A lot of times they're reading the crowd to see if it's a home run or like where,
right.
Trying to follow the ball is virtually impossible. So not having the crowd there could be some awkward moments for camera operators as well. I hadn't really considered that part.
Yeah, and listening to the Padre broadcast last night, I didn't know that they have a new camera now. It's called the All Nine, and that's how they basically are going to do their road games, is watching off of a monitor of the field in an All Nine camera position. So I would love to kind of sneak over there and see what that looks like, because I think that's really going to be. I've seen it for football, the 22 version, where you can see all 22 players, but I've never seen it for baseball. I'm kind of intrigued by that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just how things evolve with the broadcast calls. One other thing that I'm kind of intrigued by is the sports business side of baseball games and the different signage we'll see, like in the outfield seats. You're already starting to see that, but it'll be interesting to see how creative companies get with putting out their brand and logos. Let's dig into it, guys. Padres opening day on Friday. They'll take on the Arizona Diamondbacks here in San Diego. Chris Paddock gets the nod for the Padres, going up against Madison Bumgarner, who, of course, went to the Diamondbacks after years with the Giants. It seems like an eternity since the offseason started, but we'll just hit on a couple things. Of course, the Padres hire new manager, very much unknown, Jace Tingler, brings in a pretty interesting style of coaching. They make a couple of off-season acquisitions as well. I guess my question to you guys is, what changed this offseason are you most intrigued to see brought about this 2020 season?
For me, with the new guys that they brought in, the thing I'm most interested to see is the approach at the plate. They went after a lot of high on-base percentage guys. Feels like the outfield almost completely turned over from a year ago, getting rid of last year Franmil and then Hunter Renfroe, Manuel Margot, bringing in guys like Tommy Pham, who's an on-base machine, Trent Grisham, and then to see, what kind of approach Will Myers will have fitting into that mix. It feels like they have determined what they want to go for. AJ Preller's been trying to get to this point, because he clearly believes in this, brought in Tingler to kind of finally get him over the edge. And I'm just really intrigued to see the approach at the plate for these Padre hitters.
Yeah, I'm more intrigued on the athleticism of this roster. Watching the two exhibition games, I'm really seeing, especially from last night, the Padres taking extra bases on simple hits where it seemed like in years past, they were a station-to-station team. It would need, you would need 3 hits to get a run in. Where I think with this team, you only need 2 hits, and then you can kind of, maybe sneak a bunt down or hit a sac fly to get that run in. And, that top of the order, I mean, we've talked about this before on the podcast, guys. That first 4 now with Pham added to that first 4 in the order is, to me, it's one of the best in the National League. I mean, so much athleticism, and as you mentioned, Brian, it seems like these guys can really take a pitcher's pitch count really far into a contest now. Where I think that wasn't the case in years past.
Yeah, Brian, you mentioned the on-base percentage. I'll give you a couple of numbers here. Tommy Pham, lifetime 373 on-base percentage. And then I was just reading, I think it was AJ Casavel's latest article, of course, the beat writer for the Padres. Last season, the Padres ranked 25th in on-base percentage across the league. And in the 5 seasons before that, they ranked dead last in 30th. So, of course, yes, that's the emphasis. Looking forward to see how that improves this season. Thomas, you mentioned the first 4 in the lineup. When you guys look at that, do you think that's something that's going to stay consistent throughout the whole season? Do you think they're going to platoon any of those players at all, or is that going to be, you can count on the first 4, first 5 of that lineup every day out?
I would think you could count on them every day. I mean, to me, that first 4 for right now, unless they make another trade, those guys are pretty much everyday players. I mean, I think you could kind of work the lineup with Myers because he tends to run hot and cold. So if you may drop him down in the lineup, or somebody may come up as far as another player and be moved into that position. But for me, I'm pretty comfortable with with those first four guys in the lineup and going forward. As you can tell, I'm pretty hyped on this team. I'm kind of, the only thing I'm nervous about is now everybody else in our baseball universe is hyping this team. I've seen ESPN now hype on them, MLB Network, and then sports writers for on The Athletic and also on the USA Today. So that's the only thing that I get nervous on is when everybody kind of now focuses on this team. I hope there isn't so much pressure for them to perform, because as I think Brian once mentioned, it's going to be a sprint. These 60 games, this is going to be the wildest season probably we'll ever see in our lives.
So when we're talking about the first four, I'm assuming that in that four, we're talking Tatis, Machado, Pham, and Eric Hosmer.
Yeah.
So that's the one piece that I'm interested in, is the Hosmer piece, because Hosmer doesn't hit lefties very well, and there's a ton of really good left-handed pitching that we're going to be facing within the division. And I wonder, I know we paid him a lot of money and he feels like the everyday type of guy, but we have quality right-handed bats in Ty France and Will Myers who can also play some first base. So I think that's kind of the one spot. I could see Pham, Machado, Tatis playing 60 games out of 60, but I could see Hosmer on the bench for 15 or so games if we have a right-handed hitter like a Ty France, who I'm really high on, stepping up and, being just a better option offensively against left-handed pitchers like Madison Bumgarner, who we're going to see tomorrow night in the opener. I feel like Hosmer probably ends up getting 55 starts just because he's the guy, but I would love to see another opportunity to have another right-handed bat in the lineup, and someone like Hosmer, see how he handles that. I think he's a very quality hitter against right-handers, but we've got a lot of right-handed bats to step in and play his position. Ty France, that's one of his primary positions, and we've seen Will Myers be solid there defensively as well. So that's the one question mark out of those four for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. I guess the nice thing is that you do have the expanded rosters for the first 4 weeks of the season. So Padres looks like they'll start the season with 5 outfielders and 7 infielders. So you do have some flexibility. I think you're going to see a lot more situational decision-making from manager Jace Tingler. So I guess that's a nice thing to have that flexibility. Let me ask you guys about the second base position. The Padres add Jurickson Profar in the offseason. He seemed to kind of be the favorite. He's listed there at the top of the depth chart, but that may be a position that you see changing day to day. What do you guys think?
I'll let you go first, Brian.
I think Profar appears to be the guy right now. I'm also, every time Greg Garcia gets an opportunity, he plays well. He's been a really solid utility guy for us, so I think he can slot in there and get some starts as well. Cronenworth, I really liked what he can do, but I just don't know where he's going to find time on the field. Maybe, it seems like he's more slotted into that shortstop spot. So if Tatis DH'd at some point, then you see Cronenworth out in the field. But I think right now it appears to be Profar's spot. I'd also like to see a little bit of Ty France over there. We've seen him play some second base last year, and I just think you've got to figure out a way to have his bat in the lineup every single day. He mashed at AAA last year. I know it's AAA, but anytime you're hitting, 430 at a high level of professional baseball, like, you are a stud. He was really good at San Diego State. He's been good at every level he's been at. So whether he's DH, whether he's playing third to give Machado a spell while he's DHing, first base, second base, Ty France has to be all over that field. And no matter how you're getting him in the lineup, you got to get him through there. So yeah, I'd like to see a little Ty France at second base as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combo platter, really, because for me, Profar has to really kind of show me that he can play, because, his numbers last year, even though he had, good RBI numbers and power, he batted only .218, and I just don't think the Padres can kind of have another, it really all depends on how long, how many games does Hedges play at the catcher position? Because I just don't think this lineup can hold 2 weak bats and that are inconsistent in the lineup on an everyday basis. So I kind of agree with Brian, and Cronenworth to me could be the wild card in all this because he's an unknown factor. We really don't know a lot about him, but the 2 games that I saw of him, I really liked his glove, and he came up with some timely hits, and now it really just has to kind of transmit into the regular season is really the key for me.
Yeah, I hear you guys. Yeah, the on base percentage and average a little bit, of an issue there. Especially, I mean, if he's in the lineup and you're starting Austin Hedges, you have 2 guys at the bottom of your order who are hitting just above the Mendoza line. That's a little bit of a scare. Speaking of Hedges, been the Padres starter for most of the last few years. Francisco Mejia enters the picture. Switch hitter, defense a little bit more of a concern for Mejia, but it sounds like they're going to go back and forth with these guys depending on how comfortable the starting pitcher is with them. Kind of a matchup for between these 2 guys. What do you think about that?
Hedges cannot hit. He has proven over, half a decade that he cannot hit at the major league level, but he's also proven that he's the best defensive catcher in the league. However they track that stuff, it's clear to everybody. The pitchers feel super comfortable with him there. You got to think now with the designated hitter, you have to treat your lineup like an American League lineup. So his threshold to be really good is like he just needs to be mediocre at the plate, which he's never been able to do. But if he could do that, he'd be a perfect American League type of catcher where you have a designated hitter and then he can just be the 9-hole guy and hit 230 and you survive. But he's never been able to do that. And then on the other side, Francisco Mejia, pitchers seems don't really want to pitch to him outside of then you get his bat in the lineup. The thing that was a little bit surprising to me when the Padres decided to keep 16 pitchers, the 7 infielders and 5 outfielders, was they only have Mejia and Hedges now in the catcher spot. So I thought if they kept someone like a Luis Torrens in there, then we'd maybe see Mejia's bat in the DH spot from time to time. But now that they're the only 2 catchers, I don't think you're ever going to see Mejia as the DH. So that's a place where I thought he could be primed and get a lot of at bats and really see what he can do offensively, because the idea of him as an offensive player is really intriguing. I think he could be really solid if he gets at bats. He's just, they're like, man, they're both so exact opposite of one another that I don't know how you deal with it. I really hope Mejia gets more starts than Hedges, but based on the pitching staff that we have, I don't really see it. Or, Hedges comes in the 6th or 7th inning to catch the last 3 or 4 innings. I could see that as well. But, a guy like Chris Paddock starting tomorrow night, I don't think he wants to throw to Mejia. He just wants to throw to Hedges. So it's a conundrum, man. I do not envy AJ Preller and old Tingley that they got to deal with that, because neither one is what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a frustrating part with the catcher position is, you could kind of sneak a hitter with a bad glove out in the outfield, and as long as you get his 3 at bats and you have a lead, you put in your defensive replacement. But really behind the dish, you don't see that too often. They either stay in the lineup, or, they just become that, like you mentioned, Brian, that the proverbial backup catcher. And really for Hedges, like you said, Sunday night, he made an excellent throw to pick off a runner at third in that exhibition game. I was like, man, that was like classic textbook, how to get out of, out of the catcher's position and throw a strike right down the line. But his bat, I mean, when you have your team announcers applauding you for laying down the perfect bunt last night, you don't want to see that from the catcher's position. I mean, you want a hitter, and unfortunately, I agree with you. Hedges is not a major league hitter, but Mejia is not a major league catcher either. So, I guess we got to wait a couple more years for some of these young players to come up. And I guess Luis Torrens is the wild card in all this because he has to stay up with the major league team being the taxi man player, because when you go on the road, you have to have 3 catchers with you at all times. So maybe he could, maybe with the workouts and maybe he shows something with his stick, maybe he's the wild card in all this. Who knows? But I think we're going another year with a big question mark behind home plate.
Yeah, question mark for sure, Thomas. Let's talk pitching. This season, 2020, looks to be the best position the Padres have been in with pitching depth in a long time, both of the starting rotation and the bullpen. I mentioned before, Chris Paddock will be the opening day starter. So fun watching this guy. He brings the energy and the passion. You add Dinelson Lamet, Garrett Richards to that, Zach Davies. How are you guys feeling about the starting 5? Although we don't necessarily know the 5th or how that is going to go about.
Well, I think in terms of the top 3, it is as good as we've been at the top of the rotation position going into a year in quite a while. Chris Paddock has already asserted that he is a very high caliber major league pitcher. I think Dinelson Lamet, if he can stay healthy, has the opportunity to be a total stud. And then Garrett Richards, every time he's been able to pitch, he's been lights out. So those 2 guys coming off of Tommy John and really limited action in 2019, obviously, if anytime you say, oh, well, if they're healthy, then. So there are question marks there, but if they are healthy, it's as good a top 3 as we've had in the rotation in a really long time. And then you look behind that, I think Zach Davies has a chance to be a quality starter. And then Lucchesi and Cal Quantrill fighting for that last rotation spot. I think it's probably going to start out with Lucchesi, and Quantrill will be a bullpen piece. But we've also seen that both of those guys can throw out of the pen. Obviously, we know, like, waiting in the wings really close behind is Mackenzie Gore and Luis Patino. So the cupboard is very full as it pertains to starting pitching, really young, good quality arms in the Padres rotation. And then the bullpen is, arguably one of the best in baseball. We've even had some injuries, but then other guys are slotting in to come in and be studs as well. Really excited that David Bednar is on the team now, that he made the opening day roster. And I just think pitching is such a position of strength for this team where it's been, I think it's the best it's been positioned in quite some time.
Yeah, I think Lamet's really the key to this season, because he's finally now rid of all of his limitations. He doesn't have a pitch count. He doesn't have an innings limit. He's going to be 2 years removed from his Tommy John surgery. The way he threw at the end of last year, really throwing the fastball in the mid 90s to upper 90s was really impressive to me. And I think if he can kind of sustain that, it's only 12 starts, and be behind Paddock, that gives them an excellent 1-2 going into some of these series. And and especially with when you're going to be playing the Dodgers a lot here, it's if you can have those 2 guys get off to a good start, if they happen to pitch the first 2 games in the series, really ups their chances to contend in this National League West. And Kyle Davis, to me, is the perfect number 4 starter. I mean, that guy's been so consistent. I was really surprised when the Milwaukee Brewers gave him up in that trade last offseason, and I think he's really going to shine. And that 5th spot, I think it's Lucchesi's right now, but I wouldn't be surprised with Gore working out with that team at their minor league level, in the upper minor league level. I wouldn't be surprised if he's brought up, because you're going to have to get him starts to keep him on his progression for next season. So he's going to have to get some innings, and I think they really would like to have this a few starts, maybe towards the tail end, once he kind of gets his sea legs, so to speak, underneath him. I think he could be a real key for this team moving forward.
Yeah, well said. Brian, you mentioned Mackenzie Gore. Just watching him, his unique delivery, and the hope of what he could become. alongside Paddock. I mean, just bigger picture, having those two guys as the face of your franchise, both, potentially could be Cy Young type pitchers. Yeah, Fernando Tatis Jr., and it gets you really excited for the next handful of years with the young talent. Let's move to the bullpen, guys. We bring back Kirby Yates to be our closer, who had another amazing year last year. We had Drew Pomeranz, former Padre as well. Couple familiar names from last year, Matt Strom, Craig Salmon, you have them. And then we just added Tim Hill in a trade as we sent away Franchi Cordero. Brian, what do you think about this bullpen?
Totally stacked. And you just named a bunch of really good pitchers, and we didn't even include Emilio Pagan, who who has closer type stuff. I mean, you have Kirby Yates, who's one of the best closers in baseball, but you've also got 3 or 4 other guys who could close games if you needed them to, assuming we wouldn't. But that means that once you get to the 6th or 7th inning, it's kind of like back in the day, the old Padre formula, whether it was, Luke Gregerson comes in for the 7th, and then Mike Adams in the 8th, and Heath Bell in the 9th, or, any combination of our lockdown 7, 8, 9 positions. And, obviously when Trevor was closing it out, I think this bullpen rakes up there with one of the best that the Padres have had in over a decade. And it's just, if we get a lead, watch out, baby.
Yeah, and don't forget, Luis Castillo might come back into the mix once if he can get healthy again. And I agree with Brian. I think especially in when the 5th starter works in those games, I think he's going to have a short leash, whoever that pitcher is, and then if we can get a lead, I think it's just going to be one hard thrower after another until it's Yates time, and I think that's a successful formula. I really like our bullpen.
Yeah, I agree. And I just, again, like a lot of different pieces to this roster. You have flexibility, guys that can be middle relievers, guys that can be, 7th inning, 8th inning guys. And then you have a couple of those strengths to close. All right, let's talk the NL West division in general. Of course, the Dodgers are the favorite. It's hard to know what's going to happen in a 60-game season. Where are the Padres going to finish? And also, how many games do you think it'll take to win the division? I know that's a 2-part question, but I'll let you guys take a swing at that.
I think the Dodgers are maybe the best team in baseball. So you got to figure they're the favorites to win. Anybody can win, man. 60 games left, 2 months in the season, anything can happen. But the Dodgers are the clear favorite. And they're probably the favorite in the National League altogether. But I think the Padres are right there, fighting for a wild card spot, fighting for a division, number of games in the division. I think the Dodgers will, win 37, 38 games. I think the Padres could be in like the 33 to 35 range. So I think it'll be a battle, but yeah, we're still looking up at LA.
Yeah. Wow. I think the Dodgers are going to win 40 games, and, they're pretty well, stacked. I mean, they're a good team, but like Brian mentioned, and I've been preaching this ever since they devised the 60 game. I think if there's 1 year for the Padres to sneak into the playoffs a little bit early than expected, it's this year. I mean, you just don't know how these teams and these players are going to react with no fans there, and that's the team that kind of can stay together and motivate each other is I think is going to really take off in this kind of hyperbolic this hyper season, and it's going to be crazy. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you said it, Thomas. I think this is the one season, a 60-game season, where the Padres have the best shot. I will remind you, during a podcast sometime last year, I predicted the Padres would win the 2020 NL West title. I have to stick with that. I mean, I don't have logic to it right now, but this is the year. I started a worldwide pandemic just so the Padres. No, I'm kidding. All right, guys. Wrapping up here, I wanted to get your reaction to the big deals in Major League Baseball and NFL. Mookie Betts with the Dodgers, Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. Pretty crazy money here, guys.
Big money during the pandemic, big money, even if there was no pandemic. I'm blown away, but both guys seem like super awesome dudes, hard workers. I'm really excited for them both.
I think the Chiefs got a steal, only giving up $400 million to Mahomes.
What about you, AB?
I was totally thinking a deal like this with Mahomes would happen. I didn't know it would happen this soon. But, you know, he's that type of player that you want to lock down for that amount of time. You think Fernando Tatis for the Padres is that type of player. You know, you obviously have more control with a player like Tatis, as young as he is, but I would love to see the Padres do something like that with our number 23. But anyways, guys, thanks for the conversation. We'll definitely do it again soon. And, man, fun to start talking sports again.
Baseball's back.
All right, guys.